In the suffocating summer of 1872, 11 white men died in their beds across the dripping bayous of southern Louisiana. Asterisk, it wasn't yellow fever, though it wasn't consumption. Every one of them went to sleep and never woke up. Found at dawn with their throats cut cleanly, almost surgically. No signs of struggle. No overturned furniture. No broken doors or shattered windows. Just blood-soaked sheets and faces frozen in expressions that sat somewhere between peace and terror. Asterisk on paper. They were respected citizens, lawyers, merchants, planters, officials. In reality, they were the inner circle of the Knights of the White Chima, the most feared local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan in that part of Louisiana. Asterisk, local officials wrote reports that said the deaths were separate. Tragic events spread across 4 different parishes. No connection. No conspiracy. Just misfortune. Asterisk, those reports ignored witness statements. They ignored physical evidence. They ignored common sense. Asterisk, after 6 quiet months. The case was officially closed. The parish judge ordered the files sealed and locked away. Asterisk, but in the back pews of freedmen's churches, in the cramped rooms of the colored section, and in whispers shared over low cooking fires, a very different story was told that it was never written down. It was never spoken where white ears might hear. Asterisk A. Story about a woman they called Noir, the Black Widow. Asterisk, and tonight, that story can finally be told. Asterisk, before we dive deep into what happened to those 11 men, I need you to do something for me. Asterisk, if you're drawn into this already, hit the subscribe button right now. This channel exists to drag long-buried stories like this out of the shadows. The stories powerful men tried to erase. Asterisk, and in the comments, tell me what state or country you're listening from. Are you somewhere in the deep south, maybe even Louisiana itself? I want to see where in our community these forgotten histories are waking up again. Asterisk, because to understand Noir, we have to go back not to 1872, but 4 years earlier, to a wound that refused to heal. In 1868, St. Martin Parish was rotting from the inside. Asterisk, the grand sugar and cotton plantations that had once screamed wealth now stood, like broken teeth against the hot Louisiana sky. Fields slid back into swamp. Cane rows dissolved into mud and reeds. Federal soldiers slept in old master bedrooms or let the houses sag into ruin under the weight of their own past. Asterisk, the parish seat. Bridge wasn't much more than a cluster of tired buildings, slumped around a courthouse that had changed flags 3 times in 7 years. Confederate, Union, and then the fragile, angry version of peace that followed the Civil War. Asterisk, what really terrified the old planter class wasn't the broken buildings. It was the people, nearly 4,000 formerly enslaved. Men and women now walked freely through streets where they had once been, told not to even look a white person in the eye. Some of them owned land. Some ran small businesses. Many voted, protected at least on paper, by Union troops and the Freedmen's Bureau. They testified in court against white defendants. They spoke under oath. They pointed at men who had once owned them and said, "He did this." Asterisks to the old families. This wasn't progress, it was apocalypse. Out of that rage and fear, the Knights of the White Chima were born, rebuilt from Confederate veterans groups and local militias. Dressed now in respectability instead of bedsheets and hoods. Asterisk, these knights didn't need costumes. They were the system, the judge on the bench, the sheriff in his office, the banker behind his desk. Asterisk, the plantation owner who still believed the war had been a mistake, not a defeat. Asterisk, they controlled the courts, the parish council, and the sheriff's department. They didn't burn crosses. They didn't ride in clownish robes. Their violence was quieter, more calculated, and completely targeted. Asterisk, if a black farmer forgot his place and spoke too boldly in town, his crops might mysteriously burn in the night. Asterisk, if a freedman tried to register to vote, polite men in good suits might visit his cabin and reason with him, explaining why it would be better, safer, to stay home on election day. Asterisk, if anyone refused to be intimidated, Then the beating started. The disappearances. The lynchings that never made it into official records. Asterisk every Thursday night. The inner circle of the knights met in a private room at the Bridge Hotel, a 3-story building on Main Street owned by one of their own. Harold Jessup. Asterisk. There were 11 men in that inner circle. They decided which freedmen needed to be disciplined. Asterisk, which white Republicans needed to be encouraged to leave the parish. Asterisk, which federal sympathizers would face ruin or worse. They believed themselves untouchable, above the law, beyond consequences. And then, one quiet Tuesday in late April, a woman stepped off a steamboat and into their world. She introduced herself as Madame Celeste Dufresne. Asterisk. She arrived in Bridge with a single trunk, a black silk parasol, and the kind of self-possession that turned heads without trying. Asterisk. She looked to be somewhere around 30, but her face had that ageless quality that made guessing impossible. Her skin was the color of café au lait, a shade that could mean anything in Louisiana: Creole nobility, mixed parentage, or a tangle of bloodlines no one dared map out loud. Asterisk. Celeste wore expensive mourning clothes of deep black, the kind that required skilled hands and costly fabric. When she entered the Bridge Hotel, every eye in the lobby tracked her without meaning to. Asterisk. She rented a room for a full month on the spot, paying Jessup in gold coins, counting them out one by one on his polished desk. Her French was flawless. Her English carried a faint Parisian lilt that fascinated the locals. Asterisk. She said her husband, a French merchant, had died in New Orleans during a recent yellow fever outbreak. She claimed she'd come to St. Martin Parish looking for a quiet house and a bit of land, someplace away from the filth, disease, and riots of the city. Asterisk on the surface. Her story made perfect sense. Asterisk. New Orleans had been ravaged by epidemics. Asterisk. French traders were everywhere in Louisiana. Asterisk. Well-bred Creole widows often retreated to smaller towns to grieve and regain their health. Asterisk. But even people who believed her story instinctively knew one thing. You didn't press Madame Dufresne with too many questions. She carried herself like a woman accustomed to respect, not demanded loudly, but assumed like air. Asterisk. Every Sunday morning she went to Mass at St. Bernard Catholic Church, taking her place in the section reserved for Creole families of standing. Asterisk. Every day she ate alone in the hotel dining room, reading French novels or writing letters in a hand so precise it looked like engraving. Asterisk. In the afternoon she walked through town with her parasol tilted to shade her face, nodding politely but never inviting conversation. Asterisk. She expressed no political opinions. Asterisk. She never spoke about race. Asterisk. She appeared utterly uninterested in attention, burning through the parish. Asterisk. And yet, in less than 2 weeks, every man on the Ninth Council had noticed her. It began with Thomas Browsard, owner of 1,500 struggling acres east of town. Asterisk. He encountered Celeste one afternoon outside the general store, examining a bolt of fabric with the practiced fingers of someone who knew quality. Asterisk. Allow me, he said, stepping in with the confident ease of a man used to being useful, or at least believed so. I know this merchant. I can make sure you're not overcharged. Asterisk. Her smile was small, almost private, but it hit him like a blow. Asterisk. Grateful, amused, and somehow faintly indulgent, as if she understood his chivalry was more about his ego than her need. Asterisk. They talked for 10 minutes. Asterisk. In that brief conversation, she painted herself as alone, newly widowed. Unfamiliar with the countryside, dependent on the kindness of respectable men to help her find a safe place to live. Asterisk. By that evening, Thomas couldn't stop thinking about her. Asterisk. It wasn't just her beauty. It was the way she listened. When Celeste turned those dark, attentive eyes on you, it felt like the rest of the world blurred out. For a moment, you weren't just another white man clinging to a crumbling system. You were important. Singular. Seen. Asterisk. When her gloved hand brushed his arm in thanks. The touch went through him like an electric shock. Asterisk, within days he was inventing excuses to be in the hotel lobby as she passed. Asterisk, he offered to show her potential properties. She accepted with a softness that suggested both gratitude and a clear understanding of the power dynamic, a vulnerable widow, relying on a gentleman's guidance. Asterisk, they rode out to inspect parcels of land, always with someone nearby. Always back before dark. Browser told his wife it was business, just helping a poor widow get settled. Nothing more? Asterisk, but he thought about Celeste constantly. How candlelight slid along the curve of her neck. How her lavender scent lingered in the carriage long after she stepped out. Asterisk, how. Every so often, she looked at him with an expression that seemed to peel away his respectable mask and stare straight into the hunger beneath. Asterisk. The other knights noticed his distraction. Asterisk soon. They began to orbit Celeste too. Asterisk Antoine Lair, the lawyer, offered free help with property transfers. Asterisk Dr. Raymond Burt, the parish coroner, worried aloud about her health and suggested consultations. Asterisk Eugene Fontenot, owner of the largest dry goods store, extended an unusually generous line of credit. Asterisk Celeste declined each offer with careful grace. Asterisk. She never appeared eager. She never demanded attention, but she also never shut any of them out completely. Each man left her company feeling that he uniquely understood her and could provide what she truly needed. Asterisk. By June, the atmosphere at Thursday night meetings had changed. Asterisk, the 11 men still voted, still planned, still moved their pieces on the board of the parish. But beneath their brotherhood ran new. Hairline fractures, asterisk, subtle boasting about who had spoken with Madame Dufresne, asterisk, casual mentions of carriage, rides or shared dinners, asterisk, small flashes of jealousy. When another man's name came up in connection with asterisk, none of them saw the danger in it. Asterisk, they told themselves it was harmless distraction. A bereaved lady, a little flirtation. Nothing more. Asterisk, they didn't notice. What was missing from the Celeste story? Asterisk, they didn't. Ask why a woman supposedly fleeing. The chaos of New Orleans would choose broke bridge, a violent backwater ripped apart by racial conflict. As her sanctuary, asterisk, they didn't question why she never wept over her dead husband. Asterisk, why her past remained smoke and suggestion, never solid, never verifiable. Asterisk, and at night, in her small hotel room while the knights slept, Madame Dufresne wrote asterisk at a narrow desk by lamplight. She filled a leather-bound journal with neat, uncompromising lines. Each man's habits, his weaknesses, asterisk, his secrets, where he lived, who guarded the house, whether his wife slept deeply, where he kept his weapons, asterisk, what he'd done, not in business, but in blood, every quiet dinner, every innocent carriage ride, every polite conversation. All of it was data, asterisk, Celeste Dufresne. If that was her real name at all, had not come to Bro. Bridge to mourn a husband or buy a cottage. Asterisk, she had come with a single, cold purpose that required patience, planning, and an iron will. She had come to kill 11 men, and the first would die before the summer was over. Asterisk. The heat in St. Martin Parish during the summer of 1872 was the kind that made strong men dizzy and weak men pray for nightfall. Even before dawn, the air felt swollen, thick with humidity, buzzing with insects, smelling faintly of rot and cane. Asterisk on the morning of July 19th. That heat carried something else, screaming. At first, the plantation staff thought it was an animal. A panther, maybe, or a feral dog. But as the sound sharpened, rising into a pitch that turned the blood cold, they recognized the voice. Mrs. Browsard. She burst from the master bedroom of the big house, stumbling into the hallway with her hair undone and her nightgown clinging to her like a second skin. The servants rushed toward her, their eyes wide, their feet sliding on the polished floor. Asterisk. He's dead. She cried. She couldn't say the rest. She didn't need to. Asterisk. When they stepped into Thomas Browsard's bedroom, they saw it immediately. Death too neat for nature, asterisk Thomas. Lay on his back atop blood-soaked sheets. Asterisk his throat had been opened so deeply the cut nearly touched his spine. Asterisk, but here was the part that made everyone stare. His eyes were closed. His hands lay calmly at his sides. Asterisk his face looked peaceful. Asterisk like he'd gone to sleep. Dreamed something beautiful, asterisk, and then someone slid a blade across his throat with a surgeon's precision. There were no signs of struggle, no overturned furniture. Asterisk, no. Weapon, no broken window. Just silence, asterisk, just the smell of lavender, asterisk, and something else. Something sweet and wild that no one could name, asterisk. Mrs. Browsard collapsed. The servants hesitated. Not because they didn't care, but because they were trained for generations not to touch a white man's body without permission. The servant who saw too much, one servant stepped forward. Esther, a 60-year-old black woman who had served the family since before the war. Asterisk. She took one look at the bedroom and knew two things instantly. 1. This was no intruder. 2. A white person must never hear what she saw. Asterisk. There were 2 empty wine glasses on the nightstand. Asterisk. The sheets were in disarray, not from sleep, but from activity. Asterisk. And when Esther lifted the bedding, she found evidence every grown woman recognizes instantly. Evidence of intimacy, even before she spotted the long, dark, fine hair caught between the floorboards near the bed. She knew exactly what had happened. Asterisk, and exactly what she must never say. Aloud, not to white people, not if she valued her life. Asterisk, she burned the sheets. Asterisk, she scrubbed the floors. She opened the windows. She told the other servants what they needed to hear to stay alive. Asterisk, an intruder came. Sheriff is investigating. Be careful at night. But in the colored quarter where people had learned to see what whites refused to see, asterisk, a different story bloomed like wildfire. The sheriff's story versus the whispered truth. Asterisk. Sheriff Claude DeVoe, DVO, arrived with Dr. Hebert, the coroner. They took one look at the scene and created a story that would keep the night safe. Greater than a freedman snuck in and cut his throat while he slept. No motive, no suspect. Just racism dressed as investigation. But everyone, black in St. Martin Parish, whispered the same thing. Asterisk. He died with a smile on his face and a woman in his bed. Asterisk, and that woman wasn't his wife. Asterisk at the funeral. The knights gathered in a tight cluster. Asterisk. 11 men dressed in silent black. Their faces set in stone. Asterisk. They were furious, humiliated, afraid. A message had been sent. Someone had dared to strike at one of them. Asterisk, but they still didn't understand the truth. Asterisk, a few rows away, wearing a black veil and holding herself with perfect poise, stood Madame Celeste Dufresne. She bowed her head like a grieving parishioner. No one noticed the tiny, satisfied curl of her lips behind the veil. Asterisk. No one saw her fingers lightly brush the rosary at her waist. Asterisk. The same rosary she would later use to steady her hand before a kill. Asterisk. No one suspected that in 3 weeks. Another knight would join Thomas in the grave. The Black Widow begins her work. Asterisk on August 9th. The town woke to another death. Asterisk. This time it was Antoine Lair. The lawyer, found in his bed, throat cut, no struggle. Wine glass still half full on his table. Asterisk, and once again, signs a woman had been with him shortly before he died. Asterisk. 2 nights, dead the same way. In less than a month. The sheriff could no longer pretend this was random. But the freed community already knew the name behind the blade. Lav, Noir's the Black Widow, a woman who seduced powerful white men, then slit their throats as they slept. Asterisk, and the most frightening part, People whispered that she didn't pick victims at random. Every man she chose had blood on his hands. Whippings, burned cabins, asterisk voter. Intimidation, hidden lynchings, threats against freedmen's families. Asterisk Celeste. Wasn't killing. Asterisk, she was balancing the scales. Asterisk and the knights. Were starting to realize that someone was hunting them from the inside. Asterisk, the death of Antoine Lair on August 9th shook the entire parish. Asterisk, one night dying. Could be chance. Asterisk, two nights. Dying the same way, in the same manner, with the same eerie calmness. That was a pattern, a warning. A storm gathering in the dark. White. Officials whispered theories. Asterisk, the sheriff muttered about uppity freedmen. Asterisk, the newspapers blamed outside agitators. Asterisk, the freedmen's quarter already had a name for the killer. Noir, the Black Widow. And they whispered something else too. Asterisk greater than she's not finished. She's just starting. A council in panic asterisk on August 12th, 3 days after Antoine's death. The remaining 9 knights held the emergency meeting in the back room of the Bridge Hotel. The room felt too small, too hot, too filled with fear. The men who once strutted, like kings, now sat rigid, sweating, snapping at shadows. Asterisk Jessup, the hotel owner, pounded the table. Asterisk, we cannot allow this to continue. 2 men dead. 2. We need answers. Dr. Hebert wiped his trembling hands on his trousers. This is impossible. No freedman could get that close. No man could get into their homes without a fight. Both victims were calm, relaxed, trusting. That means he didn't finish. They all knew what he meant. Someone they trusted had killed them. Someone they had welcomed into their private spaces. Asterisk, someone they let stand close. Enough to whisper in their ear. Asterisk silence settled heavy in the hot room. Asterisk Judge T-Hode, thin and pale, leaned forward and said what everyone feared. Asterisk greater than gentlemen. We must consider the possibility that the killer is a woman. The room erupted. Impossible. Asterisk ridiculous. Asterisk absurd. Asterisk, but each protest died in their throats, because every man in that room had the same image in his mind. Madame Celeste Dufresne. Asterisk, the widows. Spell asterisk, no one wanted to admit it, not even to themselves, but every night had felt drawn to Celeste in some way. A smile held too long. A polite brush of her hand. A quiet conversation. A glance that felt like a secret. She had been near all of them. She had spoken softly to asterisk she had studied. Each man with those still dark eyes, and she had always carried the faint scent of lavender, the same scent Esther smelled in Thomas Brassard's bedroom. Sheriff Duveau broke the silence first. My God. It's her. It has to be her. Asterisk, one said. The truth couldn't be taken back. Asterisk, the knights exchanged horrified looks. Asterisk, not only because they believed a woman was killing them one by one. Asterisk, but because of a darker realization. Every one of them had been alone with her. Every one of them had been vulnerable. Asterisk every. One of them had told themselves their fascination was harmless. Asterisk, and every one of them had secrets they never wanted spoken aloud. Asterisk if she was the killer. Their sins were about to be dragged out of the shadows, behind closed doors, while the knights panicked. The hotel staff whispered their own truths. Asterisk Rachel, a maid with sharp eyes and a quiet step, confirmed the knights' worst fears without meaning to. Asterisk, she reported to Sheriff Duveau. Asterisk, Celeste's room had no personal belongings besides clothes and basic toiletries. Asterisk, no letters. No photographs. No keepsakes of her so-called dead husband. Asterisk, at night, she returned to the side door. Long after midnight. Asterisk, she carried a small leather medical bag on her late walks. Asterisk, asterisk. Her room smelled like lavender, even when she wasn't there. as if the scent clung to her like a second skin. Asterisk, but Rachel said these things carefully, selectively. She didn't mention the things she knew in her bones. Celeste wasn't running from anything. She was hunting, cover up, and fear. The knights scrambled to protect themselves. Asterisk, those with families sent their wives and children away. Asterisk, those living alone hired armed guards. Asterisk, all of them changed the locks on their doors. Began carrying pistols everywhere, and avoided walking outside after dark. Asterisk still. The murder of two powerful white men had rattled Bro Bridge to its core. Whites were whispering. Freedmen were watching silently. Asterisk. The air felt electric with tension. Asterisk in the shadows of the colored district. A new name passed from mouth to mouth. Asterisk. Noir is not a woman. Asterisk, she is justice. Online and invisible asterisk. Meanwhile, Celeste was aware of everything. Every shift in routine. Every whispered suspicion. Every guard hired. Every door bolted. Asterisk. She watched from the shadows with the detachment of a surgeon studying her next operation. She wrote in her leather journal each night. Every night scheduled their fears, their new habits, their weaknesses, their crimes, asterisk, and when she was done, she would close the book gently, as if sealing a prayer. This wasn't rage. This wasn't madness. This was discipline. This was a woman who had spent 4 years preparing. Asterisk, and in late August, her work continued. Asterisk, on August 27th, another knight would die. Asterisk, and this time, the message left behind would reveal who she truly was. Asterisk, and why she had come to Brobridge. Asterisk by late August. The men of the Knights moved through the parish like ghosts. Asterisk jumping at shadows, sleeping with pistols under their pillows, keeping lamps burning through the night. But fear doesn't change fate, it only makes the fall slower. And on August 27th, fate claimed its next victim. The third murderer, Dr. Raymond Hebert, the parish coroner, kept late hours. He often worked long into the night in his medical office above the apothecary. Dim room with a single window overlooking Main Street. Asterisk when his assistant arrived just after sunrise. He found the door slightly open, not enough to suggest a break-in, just enough to send a cold shiver down the spine. Asterisk inside. Dr. Hebert lay on his own examination table, as if preparing himself for autopsy. Asterisk, his throat was cut so cleanly, the blood had pooled in a perfect, dark oval on the floor. And there was something else. The assistant swore later that he looked peaceful, almost smiling. The calling card, pinned to Dr. Hebert's chest with a surgical skewer, was a slip of white paper. On it, in careful handwriting, were 2 words. Remember Baton Rouge. Asterisk. Those 2 words hit the remaining knights harder than the blood. The body or the quiet smile. Because they all remembered. In March 1868, Dr. Hebert had testified in a federal investigation in Baton Rouge involving the death of a freedman named Marcus Budro. Asterisk Marcus had been beaten by masked white men, his family terrorized, his home burned. Asterisk his wife, Sarah Budro, begged the courts to listen. Asterisk, but Dr. Hebert had lied under oath. Asterisk, he claimed. Marcus died of pre-existing health issues. Asterisk, no murder. No attackers. No crime. His testimony helped set the killers free. 3 months later, Sarah Budro was found dead in a rooming house in New Orleans. Throat slit. Nothing stolen. Asterisk, a message. Just like the ones appearing now. Asterisk, but the records never mentioned what happened to Sarah's daughter. A 12-year-old girl who vanished the night her mother was killed. The Knights had forgotten her. The world had forgotten her. But someone hadn't. Connecting the past, when Judge Thode read the note, the truth slammed into him. He disappeared. Into old records, yellowed newspapers, dusty courthouse ledgers. Asterisk, when he came back to the next emergency meeting. His face looked 30 years older. He placed the files on the table. It's her, he said quietly. Asterisk, it has to be her. Asterisk, who? Sheriff Deveau demanded. Asterisk, Judge Thode looked around. The room at the remaining Knights. Asterisk, men who had ordered whippings, burnings, lynchings, terror. Asterisk, the Budro girl. He whispered. Silence fell so heavy, the lamps seemed to dim. Asterisk. The terrifying realization. Harold Jessup shook his head. But the Budro girl was 12. Madame Dufresne is in her 30s. Asterisk. Is she? Judge Thode replied. Asterisk for the first time. They considered the unthinkable. Asterisk. Maybe everything about Celeste Dufresne was a lie. Her age, her identity, her story, her name. Maybe she had rebuilt herself, her voice, her history, her background. Asterisk to get close to them. God help us, Thibodeau murmured. We let her into our homes. Asterisk. We invited her. Jessup corrected bitterly. The racial horror they could not admit. Asterisk. Another possibility crept into their minds like ice. Asterisk. If she was the Budro girl. Asterisk. She wasn't white. She had fooled them, tricked them, made them desire her, touched them. Asterisk. And every one of them knew what the law said about that. Asterisk. This wasn't just murder. Asterisk. It was humiliation. It was scandal. It was exposure. Asterisk. And that terrified them more than death. The vote for Blood Marcus Thibodeau, the newspaper editor, spoke first. We can't arrest her. A trial would expose everything. Every crime we've covered up, every witness we've threatened, every sin we've committed. Asterisk. Jessup nodded. We need to end this quietly, without reports, without records. The meaning was clear. Lynch her. Kill her. Erase her. Asterisk for years. This was how they handled threats from the freedmen's community. Asterisk now. They were turning those methods on a single woman. Asterisk. They voted one by one. With trembling hands, 9 votes, all in favor. Asterisk. Celeste Dufresne, if that was even her real name, was sentenced to death by the very men who had murdered her family. What they didn't see. Asterisk. While the knights plotted. Her execution in the hotel's back room. Asterisk. They didn't notice someone listening from the hallway. Marie, a young black waitress, heard every word. And when the meeting ended, she slipped silently out the back door, running into the night. Asterisk. She ran to the colored quarter. To the little church. To the people who would know what to do. Asterisk by dawn. The entire freedmen's community knew the knights planned to kill Noir. Asterisk. And deep in the colored district, in a small borrowed house illuminated by a single oil lamp. Asterisk. Celeste read their warning, folded it carefully, and smiled. The knights believed they were hunting her, but they didn't understand the truth. Asterisk. She had been hunting them from the moment she arrived. And now the hunt was entering its most dangerous phase. The morning after Marie delivered the warning, Bro Bridge was buzzing, but no one knew why. White residents felt something in the air. A tension, a tightness, the sense that something dangerous and invisible was moving beneath the surface. Asterisk in the freedmen's quarter, however, everyone knew exactly what was happening. Asterisk, the Knights of the White Chima had decided to kill Noir, and Noir had decided to kill them first. But while the Knights scrambled, terrified and desperate, Josephine Budro, still wearing the mask of Madame Celeste Dufresne, was already 3 steps ahead. The widow walks away. Asterisk at mid-morning. The hotel lobby stirred as Celeste approached the desk, carrying her black parasol and wearing her mourning clothes. Asterisk, Mr. Jessup, she said to the hotel owner, her voice low and steady. I've received urgent word. Asterisk, I must return to New Orleans. She paid her final bill in exact coins. She thanked him for his hospitality. Asterisk, she arranged for her trunk to be taken to the steamboat dock. Asterisk to anyone watching. It looked like a sudden but harmless departure. Asterisk, by noon, a woman dressed in Celeste's clothes boarded the steamboat, heading south, and the Knights sighed in relief. The Black Widow was gone. The murders would stop? That's what they believed, but they were wrong. So very wrong. Asterisk, because the woman on the steamboat was not Celeste. Asterisk, she was Charlotte, a freedwoman with similar features, dressed in borrowed veils and gloves. Asterisk, and while she rode peacefully downriver toward New Orleans. The real Celeste Dufresne, Josephine Budro, asterisk, was slipping quietly into her new home in the colored district behind the Freedmen's Church. Asterisk, where she was greeted not with suspicion, but with reverence. She had become a symbol, a name passed from mouth to mouth, a warning to the powerful, a Promise to the Oppressed, Noir. The killings do not stop on September 3rd. Just a week after her departure, the parish awoke to another murder. This time it was Eugene Fontenot, the dry goods store owner, but his death was different. He wasn't killed in bed. He was killed on the road. He was found slumped in the seat of his wagon, his horse grazing quietly nearby. His throat cut so deeply, the blood had stained the wagon boards dark red. Beside him, on the wooden bench, was a second indentation, the clear mark of another person sitting shoulder to shoulder. Someone he trusted, someone he allowed to ride beside him in the dark, someone he never suspected until the blade touched skin. Pinned to his vest was another note. Remember the Fontenot store fire? Because in 1869, 3 freedmen opened a small store to compete with his. Within a week, their shop mysteriously burned down. Everyone knew who did it. No one could prove it. The men fled the parish in fear. Now, justice had found Fontenot. And then there were 6 asterisks 2 weeks later, on September 15th. The clerks arrived early at the Bridge Bank and found a sight that struck them stone. Philip Rousseau. The banker sat at his desk with his ledger open. His throat was cut. The blood splatter had turned the ink on his records into a watery crimson stain. The note on his body read, "Remember the foreclosed farm." In 1870, Rousseau had illegally seized land owned by a freedman farmer trying to rebuild his life. The foreclosure didn't even follow the bank's own rules. But the man was black. So no one questioned it. Until now. 5 Knights were dead. 6 remained. And the pattern was undeniable. Fear spreads beyond Louisiana. The federal government, silent until now, finally took notice. A U.S. Marshal Elias Holbrook arrived from Baton Rouge with strict orders. Determined whether these murders are part of an organized attack on civilian authority. The Knights, for the first time, tasted the fear they had fed others for years. Marshal Holbrook interviewed freedmen, freedwomen, business owners, church leaders, hotel staff, plantation workers. And with each interview, the truth became clearer. These weren't criminal murders. These were precise, targeted, intentional, asterisk. Someone was punishing the Knights for crimes the federal courts had failed to prosecute. A revelation from the Freedmen's Church, Holbrook hit a dead end with white witnesses. But when he finally approached the black community with care and respect, the silence began to crack. Isaiah, an elderly church deacon with a straight back and tired eyes, told him a truth the Knights had never considered. You're searching for one killer, but you don't understand justice. You don't understand survival. No one kills white men in Louisiana alone. Not without help. Holbrook frowned. What are you saying? Isaiah's voice was gentle but unshakable. Greater than I'm saying the whole community decided those men needed killing. And we're all helping in our own ways. Watching, listening, covering. Blinding the eyes of the law when needed. Justice is a heavy burden, Marshal. Too heavy for one woman. Holbrook realized the truth in one icy flash. Noir wasn't a lone assassin. Noir was a community. Movement. A mirror held up to the crimes of the Knights, but he couldn't prove it. And he knew that if he pushed too hard, he'd ignite a racial war. So he wrote his report carefully. The murderer is a transient criminal. The suspect fled the parish. Further investigation unlikely to yield results. And then quietly, he left. The Knights are now alone. Jessup, Thode, Thibodeau, DeVoe, Duplantis, Arsenault. 6 men left. 6 men closing doors. Locking windows, sleeping with guns. Hiding from their own shadows. Celeste didn't need to chase them. Their own fear was killing them slowly. But she was not finished, because the next murders wouldn't happen quietly in bedrooms. They would happen in broad daylight in ways that proved not even fortified walls could save the guilty. By October. The remaining 6 Knights lived like prisoners inside their own homes. Locks, guards, loaded rifles. sleeping indifferent. Brooms every night, no routine, no predictability, but fear is a poor shield, and it blinds more than it protects. Because the Black Widow wasn't hunting blindly. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't improvising. She was working on a list she had spent 4 years building. A list of men who believed they were too powerful to ever face consequences. And the next name was one of the worst of them. Asterisk, the daytime murder of William Duplantis asterisk on October 1st. Something happened that shattered every remaining illusion of safety. Asterisk William Duplantis. The plantation owner and former militia captain was killed in the middle of the afternoon. Not at night, not in bed, not sneaking home in the dark. No asterisk. Duplantis was killed in broad daylight asterisk inside his own fortified plantation house. 3 armed guards patrolled the grounds. Dogs roamed freely. Doors were locked. Windows barred. Gunmen watched from the gallery. And yet, asterisk, when the guards heard the crash from Duplantis' study and stormed inside, they found asterisk the window latch open from inside, the desk overturned, Duplantis slumped backward in his chair. Asterisk in his throat cut so deeply that blood had soaked the papers beneath him. Pinned to his shirt was another paper note. Remember Christmas, 1868. Every night knew exactly what that meant. In the winter of 1868, during Reconstruction, Duplantis had led a night raid on a freedmen settlement to stop a group of black men from registering voters. 5 men died, homes burned, asterisk families scattered. Federal investigators tried to prosecute, but the witnesses changed their stories after masked writers visited their homes. Asterisk Duplantis got away with it, not until now. The guards swore that no one passed them. No one broke in, no one escaped, but Duplantis was dead, and Celeste had marked another name off her list. The death in the cotton warehouse asterisk, too. Weeks later, right on schedule, another night fell. Asterisk on October 14th. Charles Arsenault, a cotton broker and one of the wealthiest men in the parish, rode with the sheriff and 2 deputies to his warehouse after reports of a break-in. Asterisk. The building was massive, dark, and full of stacked cotton bales. Asterisk. The 4 men entered together, guns drawn. Asterisk. But somehow, in the maze of shadows and cotton stacks, Arsenault got separated. Asterisk. Within minutes, his body was found sprawled across the cotton, throat cut, blood seeping into the bales as if the cotton itself were drinking it. The note pinned to his chest read, "Remember the theft you called business?" Because Arsenault had built his new wealth by exploiting freedmen workers, cheating them, underpaying them, docking their wages for invented offenses, asterisk, threatening to blacklist them if they complained. Asterisk, he stole their labor, their futures, their hope, and now someone had taken his life with the same casual cruelty. Sheriff Duveau stared at the body, shaking his head. Asterisk. This is impossible, he muttered. But the freedman outside the warehouse whispered, "Greater than no, Sheriff." Asterisk, it's justice. The remaining 4 began to break. Now only 4 nights were left. Harold Jessup, the hotel owner. Asterisk Marcus Thibodeau, the newspaper editor. Judge Thode, the parish judge. Sheriff Claude Duveau, head of law enforcement himself. Asterisk 4 men who had believed themselves to be the law, now choking on their own fear. Jessup drank heavily and closed his hotel. He jumped at every knock, every footstep, every flicker of shadow. Thibodeau barricaded himself inside his home and stopped publishing the newspaper. The editor who once wrote fiery editorials now trembled at his own reflection. Judge T.H.O.'d asterisk sent his family away and moved halftime to Baton Rouge. Asterisk, he only came to the parish for court sessions and never stayed the night. Asterisk sheriff. Dove asterisk, the only one who tried to maintain appearances. Asterisk, he traveled with 4 armed deputies and slept in the parish. Jail instead of his own home. Asterisk, but even he couldn't deny the truth. They were being hunted on a schedule. Asterisk, pattern reveals itself. Asterisk, it was Sheriff Duveau who made the terrifying discovery. Asterisk one night, unable to sleep, he sat in his office and marked the murder dates on a calendar. July 19th, August 9th, August 27th, September, 3rd asterisk, September. 15 October, 1st October, 14th asterisk. His hands began to shake dot asterisk. Every single murder had happened exactly 14 days apart. 2 weeks to the day dot this wasn't random. This wasn't sloppy vengeance. Asterisk. This wasn't emotional violence. This was a timetable, a schedule, a countdown. The next killing would happen on October 29th. Asterisk. He gathered the remaining nights for a secret meeting inside the parish jail asterisk, the only place they believe might be safe. Asterisk. You have one chance. He said, "We know the pattern. We stick together. We hide where she cannot reach us. We break the schedule." The men agreed. They would meet before sundown on October 28th asterisk and barricade themselves inside the courthouse. Asterisk, the most fortified building in the parish. Food, guns, guards, walls. They would wait out the night together. If Celeste couldn't reach them, she couldn't kill them. Simple asterisk, they believed they had outsmarted her, but they didn't know the truth. The courthouse was exactly where she wanted them. She had been steering them toward it from the beginning. The plan was simple, too simple. On October 28th, before sundown, the final 4 knights crept into the parish courthouse like cornered animals. Asterisk Harold Jessup. Shaking from whiskey, asterisk Marcus. Thibodeau, sweating through his shirt, asterisk Judge Chu Hode. Hollow-eyed and sick with dread, asterisk Sheriff Claude Duveau. Determined to stay in control, asterisk 8 armed guards surrounded the building. Doors barred, windows locked. Asterisk, food, guns. Lamps all brought inside. A fortress. A cage dot asterisk. Tonight, Sheriff Duveau said, we stay alive. Asterisk, and by dawn, this nightmare ends. What none of them realized was this. They weren't avoiding death. They were walking straight into it. Asterisk, inside the fortress, asterisk. The courthouse was a hulking structure of heavy stone and narrow. Windows built like a bunker during Reconstruction riots. Asterisk. The men chose the main courtroom as their hold-out spot. Asterisk. It had one entrance. The windows were high, and guards were stationed at every door. Asterisk inside. The 4 knights paced like restless ghosts. Jessup drank steadily. Thibodeau muttered prayers under his breath. Asterisk judge. Thode tried to read case files to calm his mind. Asterisk Sheriff Duveau stood guard at a window, scanning the empty streets. Asterisk midnight crawled closer, and the fear thickened inside that courtroom. Asterisk, because if the killings followed the pattern asterisk, the next death would happen within hours. Asterisk. Meanwhile, in the freedmen's quarter, a very different gathering took place. Inside the small house behind the church, lit only by a single lantern, Josephine Budro, formerly Madame Celeste Dufresne, stood over a map of Bro Bridge. Around her were people who had helped her for months. Asterisk Marie. The waitress who had overheard the knight's plans. Asterisk Charlotte. Who had impersonated Celeste on the steamboat. Asterisk Isaiah. The old deacon. Asterisk, and several freedmen and freedwomen whose families had suffered at the knight's hands. Josephine studied the map calmly. They believe the courthouse protects them, she said. Asterisk. They forgot something important. Isaiah nodded. The coal chute. Asterisk. A narrow shaft built in 1867 for the heating system. It ran from the street to the basement. Almost. No one remembered it even existed. Asterisk except those who had once cleaned ash and coal for white men. Asterisk. They sealed the doors, Josephine said. But not the past. The Black Widow enters the courthouse. Asterisk just after midnight. Josephine slipped from the freedman's quarter, wearing dark clothes suited for movement. Not mourning. No veil, no gloves, no disguise. Just purpose. Asterisk. She crossed the silent, moonlit square and reached the side of the courthouse without a sound. Asterisk. No guards in sight. They were watching the main doors. Asterisk quietly. She knelt by the rusted grate of the coal chute. Asterisk by lantern light. She saw exactly what she expected. Someone had already loosened the bolts. She smiled. Asterisk. You've done well. she whispered, knowing her allies in the community had prepared the way. Asterisk with careful strength. She lifted the grate, slid into the narrow chute, and dropped silently into the courthouse basement. She stood up in the darkness. The hunt was nearly done. Inside the courthouse, asterisk upstairs. The nights were unraveling. Asterisk. I swear I heard something. Thibodeau hissed. Asterisk. It's the wind, Toad muttered. Jessup gulped whiskey and wiped his shaking hands on his vest. I can't breathe in here. Asterisk quiet. Sheriff DeVoe snapped. We stay calm, we stay alert. Asterisk, but the fear had already taken hold. Asterisk, because they weren't afraid of a mob. Asterisk, they weren't afraid of freedmen. Outside. Asterisk, they weren't afraid of the dark. They were afraid of her, the woman who slipped into their lives like smoke. Asterisk, the woman who smiled as she poisoned their pride. Asterisk, the woman whose blade whispered like justice in the dark. Noir. Asterisk, the Black Widow. Waits in the walls. Josephine moved through the basement like a shadow. She knew the building's layout better than the men who worked in it. Asterisk housemaids. Janitors and black laborers had told her every creak of the floorboards. Every blind corner, every guard habit, asterisk a stairway, led from the basement directly to a side office connected to the main. Courtroom. Asterisk. She reached the door, listened. Voices, footsteps, frantic whispers. Perfect. She checked her tools, the surgeon's blade, the chloroform, the 4 prepared notes, and a faded photograph of her mother. Sarah Budro Josephine touched the photo as if drawing strength from it. Tonight. Mama, she whispered. Asterisk. Tonight? I finished what they began. Asterisk. She slipped into the darkened clerk's office. Asterisk only. One door separated her from the nights. Asterisk. Just a thin wooden door. Asterisk. Nothing more. She waited. A quiet breath. A soft step. Moment. All 4 men had their backs turned. The Black Widow stepped into the courtroom. Good evening, gentlemen. Her voice was steady, cold, clear. Forehead snapped toward her. Guns rose. Eyes widened. Mouths fell open. Jessup dropped his whiskey. The glass shattered. Sheriff. DeVoe whispered, Dear God. Judge Thode stumbled backward. Thibodeau froze. Asterisk, the woman they feared. Asterisk, the woman they'd hunted. Asterisk, the woman they'd tried to kill. Stood calmly before them, unarmed, unafraid, unshaken. Asterisk, my name, she said, is Josephine Budro, asterisk, daughter of Sarah and Marcus Budro. Asterisk and I have come to collect what you owe. Asterisk and? With that, the showdown began. Asterisk if you're ready for the final confrontation. Asterisk, the confessions. The crowd gathering outside, and the fate of all 4 remaining knights. For a few impossible seconds, the courtroom fell silent. Josephine Budro, the woman they hunted, the woman they feared, the woman they tried to kill. Asterisk, stood before them as calm as a church bell at dawn. Asterisk, no disguise, no mourning dress, no mask of polite Creole widowhood, just truth. Her presence alone was a weapon sharper than any. Blade. Asterisk. Jessup's lips trembled. Thibodeau's knees buckled. Judge. T.A.'s Ode couldn't breathe. Asterisk and Sheriff DeVoe raised his gun with hands that wouldn't stop. Shaking. Asterisk, it was the first time the knights truly saw her. Asterisk not as Celeste Dufresne, not as a mysterious seductress, but as the daughter of their victims, the daughter of a woman they murdered. Asterisk, the daughter of a family they destroyed. Asterisk, and tonight she had come to settle the ledger. You will listen. Asterisk. Josephine stepped closer, unafraid of the gun pointed at her chest. Asterisk, if you kill me now, she said quietly, the people outside will burn this building to the ground. The knights flinched, because outside. Asterisk for The first time in the parishes, history asterisk hundreds of freedmen and freedwomen had gathered, not with weapons, not with torches, but with hymns. Their voices drifted through the courthouse windows like a rising tide, asterisk, swing low, sweet chariot. Justice had come singing. Sheriff Duveau lowered his gun an inch asterisk, not out of mercy, but out of fear. What do you want from us? He growled. Josephine's voice did not waver. You will know why you are going to die. You will hear the truth of your crimes from the mouth of the child you orphaned. Asterisk she placed her mother's faded photograph on the judge's desk. Asterisk. This is Sarah Budro, she said, asterisk. A woman who believed in the law, a woman who trusted the courts. A woman who trusted you. Asterisk, her voice sharpened. Asterisk. You slit her throat. Asterisk Thibodeau gasped. Asterisk Jessup swore under his breath. Asterisk Judge Tehode's eyes filled with tears despite himself. Asterisk Josephine stepped between them and pointed one by one. Asterisk. You burned the homes of freedmen trying to vote. Asterisk. You fired the shot that killed my father. You lied under oath to set his murderers free. You whipped men until their backs opened. Asterisk. You stole their wages. You burned their shops. You terrorized their families. Asterisk. You ruled this parish with fear and blood. Asterisk she. Let the words sink into their bones. Asterisk. Then she said the line. That broke them. Asterisk. I am not here. Executioner. Asterisk. I'm your consequence. The judge breaks first asterisk for the first time in his life. Judge Toad looked beaten, completely broken. He sank into a chair, shaking, whispering, She's right. My God. She's right? Jessup grabbed him by the arm. Don't listen to her. She's manipulating us. But though it was done, this is justice, he murmured. Late, but justice. He walked to his desk drawer with trembling hands. From it he pulled parchment and ink. What are you doing? Thibodeau gasped, asterisk, but the judge didn't. Look up. I am writing the truth. Every crime, every name, every act of terror committed by the Knights of the White Chima asterisk in St. Martin. Parish, asterisk, he dipped the pen into. Ink asterisk, and every one of us will sign it. Asterisk, the other knights stared at him. Horror, because a written confession, even hidden, even sealed, was a weapon that could destroy them forever. A trial? Jessup shouted. She wants us to incriminate asterisk Josephine. Cut him off. I am not asking for a trial. Trials failed my mother. Courts failed my father. The law failed this parish. Asterisk she stepped closer. I want a record. Truth no one can bury. Asterisk something your children will fear. Asterisk and your grandchildren will remember. Asterisk, the judge nodded, tears streaking his face. Asterisk, Sheriff Duveau whispered. You're damning us? No, Toad said softly. We damned ourselves long ago. And he began to write the confession for the next hour. The courtroom was filled with nothing but asterisk the scratch of a pen, asterisk the trembling breaths of terrified men, and the hymns rising from outside. When the judge finished, he placed the document on the desk. Sign, he said, one by one asterisk hands shaking. Sweat dripping asterisk, the knights signed their names. Harold Jessup, Marcus Thibodeau, Claude Duveau, Vincent. Th. Ode asterisk, the four remaining leaders of the most feared Klan chapter in Louisiana, their crimes in black ink, their guilt undeniable, their power gone when the last signature hit the page. The judge slid the document to Josephine. Asterisk. A copy stays with us, he said. Asterisk. The original goes with them. He gestured toward the freedmen singing in the streets. And if we ever lift a hand against them again. Asterisk. This confession comes to light. The end of the hunt asterisk Sheriff Duveau straightened. anger burning through his fear. Asterisk. So what now? He snapped. Asterisk. You kill us? Hang us? Poison us? Josephine looked at him with eyes as calm as water. No, she said. Asterisk. You will live. Asterisk. It was the worst punishment of all. You will live with fear, with shame. Asterisk. With the knowledge that every freedman in this parish knows what you are. Asterisk. Every child will hear my mother's name. Asterisk. Every sermon will remember your crimes. She leaned in close enough for him to smell the lavender. And you will live with the truth that a woman asterisk, a colored woman asterisk, brought you to your knees. Asterisk. Sheriff DeVoe lowered his eyes, defeated, broken, small. Go, he whispered. Asterisk. Josephine stepped backward toward the door. But before she left, she turned and said, if any of you return to violence, asterisk, if you harm one more freedman, asterisk, I will return. Asterisk. The door opened. Light poured in. The hymns grew louder. The crowd parted. Josephine Budro walked out of the courthouse at dawn, alive, unchained, unmasked. The Black Widow had finished her hunt. What followed after asterisk in the months that followed? Judge Stode resigned, moved to Texas, and drank himself to death within 2 years. Asterisk. Sheriff DeVoe. Asterisk. 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 Subscribe. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it.